Hey guys, it's time for another Bond movie matchup. In my opinion, Pierce Brosnan got the shaft in terms of reputation as 007. Critics and fans generally dismiss 3/4 of his films, and I believe all of them have legitimately worthwhile moments, even though half of his flicks have considerably less of such moments than the other half. So now that we're done fawning over his heyday, it's time to discuss what I consider to be the bottom half of the Brosnan era. Die Another Day and The World Is Not Enough. 2 films, 7 categories, let's go. The World Is Not Enough received much criticism for its convoluted script, and it deserved it. It starts by paratrooping us into a scene involving a money transfer, a betrayal, and a sniper, and I'll confess to not knowing what the hell was happening. It does lead to an action beat I'll discuss later, but it serves as a red flag for the film's confusing nature. Okay, there's a kidnapping of Electra King and the ransom wasn't paid. Sure, she's rescued and her father is killed by explosive currency. Okay, the bad guy's still out there. Bond, protect the girl. She's constructing a pipeline through Istanbul. Alright? Don't sleep with her, Bond. I can't sleep with you. Oops! Now Bond leaves her because reasons. Bad Russian accent.
He was buried with work.
Cleats. Now we're in a nuclear testing site. Betrayal again. Or not. Or yes. Plutonium in the pipeline. Back to Istanbul. Caviar.
Caviar.
Caviar? It's one thing to make the viewer lost to create paranoia or have them piece together a suspenseful puzzle, but this is a bad puzzle. Die Another Day's plot is equal parts silly and formulaic. Seriously, you had a giant sun laser and you didn't incorporate a human vs. ants metaphor? Fail. However, I can at least follow what's happening, so point for that. Die Another Day opens with Bond getting captured and then tortured for 14 months. We've seen 007 escape numerous traps, but having him spend over a year as a prisoner was a fresh concept, and a harsh reality to the spy fantasy. Once he's released, he must walk past the villain for whom he was traded, and to Bond, the experience is akin to a walk of shame. I would have liked the film to explore these feelings of failure and revenge a bit more, and there are hints here and there, but once Bond shaves, he's essentially normal Bond again. In World, I don't know if it's the actor or the direction, but Brosnan plays it very flustered, and not consistently enough to feel natural. It's as if they had all these different takes, and in the editing room they were assembled by someone on their 9th Red Bull. It's like if Nick Cage was James Bond. Oh my god, can we make that happen please? Anyway, Die Another Day gets the point. Like my previous review, I had trouble deciding whether a certain lady was a Bond girl or a villain. Electra King not only reveals herself as an enemy, but it's made clear how much responsibility she took on in hatching the evil plan. She even admits to manipulating the main villain Renard, making her the primary antagonist in a way. But that's all the last third of the film, and I think it's fair to say she serves the Bond girl and villain roles equally. And as a Bond girl, she's one of the best. A dangerously impulsive woman who can't live in safety or stagnation without getting bored senseless. Just by being less reckless, Bond assumes the voice of reason, and as a result, she renders him into a beleaguered babysitter. Ignoring her convoluted plan, just as a character, she's a constant source of unpredictability and energy.
I don't want to be safe.
As for Denise Richards as boot-stomping, cargo-short-strutting nuclear physicist Christmas Jones, look, Christmas Jones is regarded as one of the worst Bond girls ever. I don't really have much to add. All I'll say is that Richards does a bad job, and the character is delayed. No, really, every time there's danger, she takes extra long to move. It's like she has video game lag. On the other side, Halle Berry and Rosamund Pike prove that looking and dressing the part isn't enough to be memorable Bond girls. Their line delivery isn't sexy or mysterious, partly due to some atrocious double entendres.
I take it Mr. Bond's been explaining his Big Bang Theory.
Oh, yeah, I think I got the thrust of it.
But mostly due to the actresses not selling it. They look like they're reading lines, you know? Halle does slightly better, but it's not sufficient. I can smell the script through the screen. I'll take iconic Dragon and Anchor over forgettable any day. There are certain consistencies that pervade the Bond series, regardless of who's at the helm or who's in the tux. And one I particularly like that shows up about half the time is a villain with some kind of physical quirk or defect. It's a fun way to make a villain interesting, and as a writer, I can't think of a more enjoyable brainstorm. These two films attempt to do the same with their lead villains. Renard from The World Is Not Enough has a gunshot wound that slowly removes his senses, including touch and the capacity to feel pain. This acts not only as a kind of superpower, but makes him somewhat sympathetic. I mean, I know 007 steals women from the bad guys, but Renard gets straight up cucked here.
He was a good lover.
What do you think? I wouldn't feel anything?
Ugh. In Die Another Day, Gustav Graves is a North Korean officer who fakes his death and gets facial reconstructive surgery to look like a posh British man. That's retarded. What, did they throw in the British accent like a free tote bag? His motivation is akin to a kid who was promised Disney World but never got to go. And together with his henchman Stir Fry at Tiffany's, is that racist? They aren't threatening or command the screen in any fashion, and are emblematic of the film's poorly thought out indulgences. Point to world. Die Another Day has one of my least favorite girl fights ever, featuring two beautiful women swinging daggers at each other on a burning airplane, and it's somehow the most boring thing ever. There are two action beats I did like, the sword fight early on, and this flip move with the car. Noise. Other than that, there's too much noise, not enough imagination, and the less said about PlayStation 007 hanging 10, the better. When I rewatched The World Is Not Enough for this review, I was astounded at how good some of the action was. The opening sequence features an exhilarating boat chase, some of which taking place on land, that is all done with practical effects. Remember those? When it was the rule, not the exception? This whole scene reminded me of how much I missed it, and why I cherish modern films that do it. Not only is it exciting and well shot, but the filmmakers do a good job making us feel the physical struggle. You can see Brosnan getting repeatedly dunked in the water. Just those little touches of realism do wonders for any action scene. All the set pieces are very ambitious. Paragliders, snowmobiles, a sinking submarine, a helicopter with dangling saws ripping apart a dock. It's impressive as hell. And while their length may be partly to blame for the rushed exposition, on their own, they're a blast. In terms of presentation, both films fall flat. Die Another Day is flashier, but is crippled by a ridiculous finale and CGI that would get rejected from Black Panther. It was interesting how gray they made the intro sequence, foreshadowing his torture perhaps? But looking back on it, it just feels out of place for the rest of the film. World is more consistent in its style, steely and brooding, but while all the action is well done, the dialogue scenes are not. The best thing World has going for its presentation is the theme song by Garbage. It's catchy, but also eerie, which fits the movie's overall tone. Having a story element, in this case oil, literally make up the female silhouettes is a cool concept. And to top it off, the song matches the visuals perfectly. The song feels wet, feels oily and dark, and so this sequence works on all fronts. Die Another Day, on the other hand, Look, it's a terrible song, but its biggest sin is that it doesn't fit the context of the opening credits. Bond is being waterboarded and stung by scorpions, and we get maybe they wanted the song to be gleeful, like it's toying with Bond? Maybe? Still sucks though. World wins. Regardless of how good these films are as films, it's worth acknowledging how they succeed at this very specific genre. How Bond are they? And what's funny is that as bad as Die Another Day is, I think it captures the essence of 007 better. Take for example this scene of Bond catching some road wind in an old school convertible in Cuba. It's such a small, seemingly innocuous scene, but it instills that feeling of cool, that groove. The kind that makes us excited to see what's next and makes us want to be him. It helps that the film boasts a few festive locations, a sunlit beach, a swanky hotel, and an ice palace.
Vodka martini. Plenty of ice, if you can spare it.
World is lacking in all of this. It's so underlit and grave, it looks like The Raid, which is fine for the rugged action flick it's trying to be, but for the purpose of bringing us a slick Bond film, it falls short. Except the X-ray specs. Those were neat. I just wish they didn't look like X-ray specs. You know? While Die Another Day offers moments of interest and isn't the complete train wreck people make it out to be, it's still a 5-car pileup. Its biggest flaw is just how dumb it is, without enough memorable action or characters to make it dumb fun. The World Is Not Enough at least comes across like a shaky house of cards, with just enough struts to keep it from total collapse. And so, it takes the win. To finish up, I want to quickly address this scene with Q from The World Is Not Enough. He's training his predecessor, played by John Cleese, and here you can see firsthand how the role of Q isn't just exasperated British wit. There's a magic to it, something Cleese fails at capturing. The scene itself acknowledges this, mocking the Q in training at every opportunity, but what I really want to talk about is how strange this scene is in retrospect. While Desmond Llewellyn didn't officially retire from the role, this was clearly a move to set up someone new, as the actor was in his mid-80s. Yet fate made the decision anyway, as Desmond Llewellyn died in a car accident 3 weeks after the film's premiere. So I'd like to end the video with a few words from Q, not only because of how sadly appropriate they became, how wonderful Llewellyn was in this role, or even how great the lines are, but to illustrate that even in a movie as silly, sexualized, and mediocre as The World Is Not Enough, there is still room to be taught a lesson by a wise old man.
Now pay attention, 007. I've always tried to teach you 2 things. First, never let them see you bleed.
And the second?
Always have an escape plan.
Yeah, I think I like this movie now.